an amazing, connected, beautiful relationship.
Congratulations. You don't hear that too often that people are married for that long.
Yeah.
Like my grandmother and grandfather were married for that long before they ultimately
Right.
separated, and my parents were together for a long time before they did as well. Like the way they both tell the stories that they were together back when you would find your husband or wife at the farmer's market, right? Like you take the ferry, which costs you 5 cents.
Yeah.
You'd go to the farmer's market, she would drop her handkerchief, and you knew,
I
aha,
love it.
she's the one for me.
Maybe we may need to go back to dating in that way.
I
Yeah.
think we do because this swipe left and swipe right, it doesn't seem to be working. Like I haven't been on dating apps probably in, oh my goodness, it's been so long. And I just don't know how people meet people these days outside of maybe, like I know school used to be a big thing. I know workplace, but it
Yeah.
seems that's kind of shifted because you don't
Mm.
want to put yourself in a difficult situation because you're still trying to navigate how to approach men and women respectfully when it comes to job, and there seems to be a lot of gray area at work, right?
I think it's challenging these days. We've had this discussion many times. So I've got two sons. My oldest son is in his late 30s, my younger son early 30s. So my younger son is about to get engaged, has set his wedding. So they're in a beautiful, loving, connected relationship. My eldest son, who is amazing, he's a naturopath, herbalist, nutritionist. He's got his several businesses. He's financially doing well. He's good looking, he's rounded in so many ways, yet he's still single. And he says it's hard to find a woman that, like he's fussy, I guess. Well, not fussy, but he has standards. And it's hard to find women who, tick those boxes. And he still wants to have children. So, like, he's coming up to, 39 on his next birthday. And so he's going to need to meet a younger woman, who can still, by the time they decide they want to have kids, can still, be happy to have a family. So it's challenging. I think it's challenging. You hear it from both women and men, don't you? But I find that I had the conversation with another group the other day with a gentleman who was saying it's really tough for young men these days or single men to and women seem to be getting fussier, like they want all the boxes to be ticked, good looking, financially stable, good job, good body, I think we're getting fussier, aren't we, in regards to our expectations.
There's a joke, right? It's that the woman wants 6 inches, 6 feet, and six figures, right? But
That's true. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like what do you do? Most people are not even 6 feet. The average man in America is like 5'7".
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
most people are under 6 feet, right? And the average height for like a female, I believe, was like 5'3" or 5'4".
Yeah.
So most people aren't 6 feet, but yet you have people that want to be. There's someone I know. It was her type is so odd. She'll say that he has to make sure he has big hands and he has to be 6 feet and he has to be all this. I was like, okay, but what's your definition of hands? Like on your first date, do you bring like a measuring tape and you say, okay, your hands have to be right? Because I'm here just thinking, just have a job that can sustain the lifestyle that you want. Just be feminine,
Mm.
be friendly, be
Yeah.
non-aggressive, right? But
Why,
now
why are
it's
we
like,
not looking for, we're not looking for values and we're not looking
hmm,
for who the person is. So who cares if they're 5'8" or 6 foot? Who cares if, they've got all the sixes, like it's just, aren't we looking for somebody that we can have a connection with, that we can, you know, have similar values and have some similar interests and enjoy being with? Like, yes, physicality is important, like there needs to be a level of attraction, I get that, but I think we're getting too fussy maybe, or we're getting very superficial maybe in what we're looking for in a partner.
like, what do you say to those who are maybe they want to find love, but as you mentioned, they're very specific and they're very fussy,
Yeah.
and their preferences have become their prison because what they
Mm.
want keeps them from
Mm.
even finding someone that would be relatively good for them.
Mm. I mean, this is not an area of expertise for me, by the way. I'm a parenting strategist, but I have a huge interest in relationship as well. And we have a lot of discussions, like I had with my sons as well. But I think that I'm in two minds, because I also believe that we can attract what we want. So, for example, if there's a particular partner you want, to write down everything you want in that person. And that I believe if we know what we want and focus on what we want and feel that person is there for us, that we can attract them. But I think also that list has to have a certain level of realism about it as well. Like, if put your 3 6s in there and a whole bunch of other stuff, then I guess it is possible to find that person, but the person who's seeking those 3 6s, for example, do they tick all the boxes, that the recipient would be looking for as well? So there's a certain level of, I don't know, like, I think we're all looking for that perfect person rather than the person who, aligns with us and with our values and so forth. And I think, my husband and I are very different in a lot of ways. I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert. I'm a lot more out there than he is. He's a lot more conservative, but we have the same core values. And I think core values are what really holds the relationship together. So what is really important, to us as humans and in that relationship. And of course, communication and connection and relationship. And they're all things that we have to work on, whether it be a romantic relationship or a parenting relationship. We've got to look at what does having a successful and positive and loving and connected relationship mean? What does that entail? So whether, you're the parent, establishing that relationship with your child, or whether you're an adolescent or young adult going out there and exploring relationships, or whether you're a fully grown adult looking to connect, either with a friendship or a romantic relationship, what are you looking for in that relationship? Is really, really important. But being so passionate about parenting, I think it really all starts with parenting, helping the child to have, so what I teach in the Nurtured Heart approach, and I know I'm getting a bit off track here, is to build what we call inner wealth, which means having the child have a sense of self, so that they know who they are, that they know that they are a kind person, a compassionate person, a person with integrity, a person with flexibility, a person with tenacity, etc. And they know who they are as a person. So as the child grows up into adolescence and adulthood, they know who they are and they know what their values are. And therefore, I think more organically, they're going to attract a like-minded person, because they know who they are and what their own values are. So they're not mixed up about who am I as a person, what do I stand for. When you stand strong and know who you are as a person and what you stand for, and you're strong on that, then I think people are going to kind of see you for who you are, and the right people will be attracted to you, whether that be a romantic relationship or a business relationship or a friendship relationship. When you know who you are as a person and you stand strong on that, then I think you will attract like-minded people. Like, the people I surround myself with are all like-minded. I just don't connect with people who don't align with my values. And if they come into my life for some reason, they just don't stick around because they don't align, if that makes sense. So I think it's important to know who we are as a person, and that really starts with how we're parented and what, our sense of self as we're growing up. I think it's all really connected.
So I'll look at the parenting aspect of it since you shared that, and I look at my life and some of the struggles that I went through as a child.
Yeah.
And I see there was a point where I saw glimpses of that struggle in my adulthood. And I'll
Yeah.
give you an example of that. In my childhood, I didn't necessarily have the best people around me, and I was influenced by those people because that's all I had.
Yeah.
So it's either, sometimes when you're a young kid, right, it's either to have a bad influence and no influence at all, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as I grew up in my adulthood, especially my, let's say in my teens, let's say 18, 19, and that age, I noticed the same thing. But this time, what I did differently was I noticed it. Because as a child, you don't really notice it because
Yeah.
you're at the mercy of your caregivers.
Yeah,
But as an
absolutely.
adult, I began to realize I was like, hey, this person doesn't align with where I want to go. This
Exactly.
person is taking more from me than they are giving in. So when you
Correct.
mentioned how we're parented and the impact of it, how early do you believe that starts, and how much of an impact does it have on us as we grow into our adulthood trying to navigate in the world?
It starts from the day you come into this world, and actually even possibly earlier, like in utero, because those first very early developmental years, they say the first 2 years, and then they say the first 12 months, the first 6 months. I really believe it's important for a mother or a father, preferably a mother, to be with their child. They say at least 2 years, but I really believe at least 5 years, and at least until they start school, because that is that connection is really important. When a young baby is taken away from their parent and put into childcare, for example. And I know I'm not judging, sorry, I'm not meaning to be judging, because I know a lot of people have to go back to work to earn an income, but I think those early years are very, very important for the bonding and for that child to feel they're worthy of their parents' time and love and connection. Babies and infants don't understand why their parent, in their minds, have abandoned them at a young age. Why have they been taken, from the home into a strange place where there are other babies and other kids, and they those kids could then grow up with the sense of, well, I wasn't loved enough to for my parents to stay with me or to be with me, and that might not be the instance in all cases. And I'm certainly, once again, no expert in this. But when I reflect back, and, I've been talking to my beautiful potential daughter-in-law, well, I still call her my daughter-in-law, about this and how important, because she's a real career woman. And I'm trying to, without, saying, being an interfering mother-in-law, but how important it is for that baby to have you in her or his life, like ongoing. And I want to be, as a potential grandmother, and I'm hoping to be a grandmother, I want to be a part of that, upbringing of that child as well. Because I think, remember in the days where the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles and the community, it takes a tribe to raise a child type of thing. Well, that doesn't happen so much now. And even the grandparents, so, the grandparents who are in their 50s and 60s, they're often still needing to work financially. So they're not even available for their grandchildren to help nurture and care for them these days, because everybody's needing to be out there earning a living, because it takes a lot to survive these days financially. And I think the things that are important to us today are different than they used to be in the days where, the mother's role, and I could get shot down for this now, but where the mother's role was to stay at home and nurture the child. And now a lot of women, want to be career women, or they need to be working financially to be able to pay the mortgage, to be able to pay the rent, to be able to survive and live. I don't know what it's like in the States, but just to rent a house here now costs, an average house, not even a fancy house, costs more than one person's wage each week. So it's almost impossible for a young couple with a baby or a couple of young kids to survive on one person's wage, generally speaking. So I get that both parents need to work, but I think that, that at least the first couple of years are super important. And I have this bit of analogy, that our children, come into this world like a blank neck top computer. So they've had no programming, no, software put in or anything yet. And so it's the adults of influence around that child who determine what gets programmed in. So you want to be really careful, if you're not looking after the child yourself, what the people around your children at that very young and formative age are saying, doing, communicating, vibes they're putting out, what words are they using. It's so important. Every word that we say to our child from birth impacts the person they're going to be later on. It's so vitally important. And there's even a train of thought that even in utero, that our kids are picking up on things that are said or done, or feelings, etc. So even as a mother, when we're pregnant, it's really important to stay calm, to not be arguing or angry or so forth, because the baby can pick up on it. There's various trains of thought, but yeah, it's complex, isn't it? Especially in these days.
I wonder how much of that can be contributed to when you had the mother. I'm speaking to heterosexual relationships now. When you had the mother and the father separate,
Mm,
and you're able to supplement one of their incomes, you no longer needed them in the house. So, for
mm,
example, if you could be a single parent,
mm,
there is sources of secondary and tertiary income that could
mm,
supplement the other person's income. So you no longer needed to be married to have
mm,
children to maintain the household. So you can be
mm,
a single parent. And as that began to rise,
mm.
because in most cases the mother would have the child, right? So as
Yeah.
that began to rise in certain communities, it was widespread. And now it went from something that wasn't necessarily talked about or shamed
Mm,
to a little bit, where
mm,
now for some people it's a preferred method. They would say that if I'm going to have a child by terrain and he makes 45,000 and I make 45,000, I rather have the child making 45,000 and not be married to terrain, even though it would make more sense to have the child and make the 90,000. But
mm,
what comes to that 90,000 is, as you mentioned, there's going to be certain roles, right? There's going to be certain compromise because now we're a unit
mm,
raising this child versus I could
mm.
possibly get some source of income from terrain, child support, something from the government, and still
Yeah.
raise this child. And
Mm,
because it's no longer the village raising the child, I think the daycare has
mm,
replaced the village, if that
mm.
makes sense. Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there are I actually work with, I have a lot of people in my course who are childcare providers and educators, and some of the ones in my current course have home daycare businesses where they might just have, 3 or 4 or 5 children in there. And one lady in particular that comes to mind, she's got 2 of her own children, and she has about 4 or 5 children each day, but she's actually using the nurtured heart approach in her caring of these children. So they're very fortunate. I think that and I've been into a lot of early childhood facilities, childcare centres, and some of them seem very big and very cold, and kind of they don't have that warm family feeling, and then others do. So it really does depend as well. And I guess if you are a young parent and you have to be out working and you do have to put your child in care, maybe it's worth taking a little bit of time to look for some of those, maybe home daycare type situations where you feel that the carer is like-minded. Although it is tricky, it's really, really difficult these days. And I know that, my youngest son and his partner, I feel that she will want to go back to work sooner than 5 years, just because she loves her career and what she does.